What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and we are here for SkepTalk. Today is August 7th, 2023, and if you guys out there, if you're a theist in the chat and you would like to try to prove God, I'm also a mythicist. A lot of people like to fight me about that. So if y'all want to call in and argue about some history surrounding Jesus or the Bible or any kind of shit like that, or if you just want to go old school, I guess, and just try to prove that God exists, then please do call in. We've got a link down in the description. If you're international or whatnot, you can only call in over the internet, or you could just call 720-619-2288, and we will answer any of your questions or any of your challenges. We are here with Jim Barrows. Hey there, Jim. How you doing?
Hey, not too bad. Not too bad at all. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I'm always in a scramble to find somebody to come on. It's like, there's everybody around this time of year has got stuff going on. So I really appreciate you coming on and answering some calls with me. Yeah. Just let everybody. Yeah, we do. I love having shows with you. Just to remind everybody, if you want to send in a super chat, we will be reviewing the super chats at the end of the show, and you will be able to directly ask us questions. If you don't want to call in, but you still got a question to ask us, feel free to send in a super chat. And like Jimmy always says, if you don't send in enough super chats, we'll have to sell the show to somebody like Elon Musk or someone. I don't know. He'll turn it into the X show, triple X show. Anyways,
we may do that on our own. Like, we mentioned whale penis enough.
Yeah. Them goddamn whale penises. All right. So
whale penises are actually old news. It's all about tapir penises right now. If you didn't know, there's an incident on Aron Ra's show, and I'm going to be sending you both messages over Facebook Messenger, and you'll see. Call in now, 720-619-2288. We've got lines open, people.
Yes, we do.
Not sure I want to know.
Casey said, "Thank you, God." so we'll turn this entire show. Yeah. We'll turn this entire show into nothing but tapir penises, apparently, is what the threat is tonight. So, let's see. Apparently, Jimmy sent me the gift.
Open these Facebook messages, Jim and John. Let's just all watch you react.
Oh,
you need to.
God damn! It's like another arm.
It's prehensile.
It's
like an elephant truck.
It basically has a hand at the end of it.
Yeah, he's just smacking the ground with his dick.
Is he picking stuff up and slamming it into his stomach? Is that what he's doing?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he might be building something, because that's like a hammer.
Building something with his dick?
I mean, might as well, honey. I mean, look at that thing.
Does it have an opposable thumb?
Maybe.
It's prehensile, so kind of. It can grip with it. Does she want me to forward it to her?
Whole new concept.
She saw it.
Whole new world hand jobs.
Yeah, I mean, some people think that it's a little weird that I can grip stuff with my big toe, but it's like, but you haven't seen me do stuff with my penis yet. That would just be weird. Anyways,
the show's off to an amazing start.
I know, right?
Christians calling in right now. Come on. Come on, religious people, Christians, people who want to argue about mythicism. What's wrong? Call in.
So Jim, have you been doing anything that's not tapir penis related lately?
No, not too much. Just, I post on Facebook. I have been reading, and I'm thinking, in order to react to it, since we have people like you and Paulo G are doing such wonderful reactions to the YouTube content, I thought I would start doing some book reviews. And so I'm currently reading I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And we'll be doing probably some content on that coming up. I don't know when. Don't ask me. I don't know. About halfway through the book, and it is painful. And we've heard it all before. He has not changed his shtick since he wrote the book. So, you know, and then I got the study guide.
Oh, there's a study guide for it? Guide.
Well, look at this. The study guide's bigger than the book. It's thicker than the book.
Yeah.
Like, wow. So we'll be going through all that and having some fun with it. But yeah, it's Frank Turek's. It's the best of Frank Turek because he hasn't changed a darn thing. He hasn't learned a darn thing.
Yeah.
And some of the science he's got in there, like when he explains the evidence for the Big Bang, they're spot on with the evidence. I'm taking some crib notes because I want to add some, borrow some of their material because it is solid. But then they go in and go, but they're for God, and it's like, well, no, you haven't gotten there yet, right? You got to first establish that God exists. It's just anyway. We'll get to some callers and hopefully we'll go over it with them. And if not, we can talk about it.
Yeah, we definitely can. Have you gotten to the phrase from goo to the zoo to you? Because I know that's something that Frank Turek loves to throw out there.
To you, yes, I have.
Oh, okay.
And his attacks on Darwin, I will sum up with: Darwin is motherfucking dead. He's a footnote in science. Now, he's an important footnote. Don't get me wrong. He's an important footnote. But even the definition of evolution that he gave has changed from, common descent to a change in allele frequency in a population over time. So he is an important footnote, but he's dead.
Yeah. And if memory serves, Frank Turek puts a lot of emphasis on what he calls Darwin's doubt. And basically, I believe it was when Darwin said something to the effect of like, we don't have the fossil evidence to show this gradual change, but we've since found fossils that have just reinforced the gradual change. Yeah.
Yeah, the fossil record is far more complete. And the weird thing, I think, too, is it's gotten more complete in the last 20 years. Like, it seems to be from a dilettante point of view. I don't want to call myself even an amateur at this, that there wasn't a lot of fossil evidence found until like the last 20 years. And I think in part of it, because I'm reading through the Atheist Guide to the Bible, and one of the things he points out is just how good we've gotten at archaeology and how good we've gotten at figuring out where to dig and where to look. And I think that's probably true of the folks who are out there fossil hunting, that they have gotten better at predicting where they can find stuff and then how to find it. And so we're just getting a lot more of the fossil record than we have in the past. It just seems like to me. But I would rather let someone who's an expert actually talk on that. That's just what it seems like from my point of view.
Yeah. So, so far in Frank's book, I haven't read Frank's book. I've read a couple other apologetic books, but as far as Frank's book goes, has he presented a lot of arguments for you? And if he's presented multiple, has there been like a worst one yet?
No, it's all very standard Frank fare. If you've watched any of his YouTube content or anything else, it's literally the same shit. It's not even repackaged. He has not updated it in any way, shape, or form, as near as I can tell. And that may actually be one of the analysis that I do is has Frank learned anything since he wrote the book, considering how much science has learned in the intervening amount of time? We've discovered gravitic waves, which, in 2016, that's after I believe he wrote the book, or about the same time he wrote the book. That's new. There's a lot of stuff that we have new. We found some new species of finches on the Galapagos. Actually, there's about 60 of them, and this is a report from a number of years ago, but they're brand new species, never seen before. And we know it's new because they didn't exist before. And they can actually trace the lineage and that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. So there's a lot of stuff that we've learned, and has he updated any of his shtick to get with the times? And I don't think he has. I don't think he's learned anything.
No, I mean, I know that the common rebuttal for any kind of speciation is like, well, are they still birds? and they generally are expecting like Pokemon evolution, where they morphologically look drastically different, and that's just not how like evolution or speciation even works. I do want to remind everybody that go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, you remind everybody. Go on.
I was just going to remind everybody, lines are completely open. Please do call in. The number is 720-619-2288. You can call in and challenge us about any of this evolution shit that we're talking about, although we're not experts, so it might be better for a different time. But, call in and ask us some questions. Now, Jim, sorry, you were about to say something.
I have completely forgotten where I was going with that train of thought. So we're talking about species and speciation and how that happens. Mm-hmm. And I think people forget or don't know that species is something that scientists impose on nature, which is why the definition for species has problems, right? So species is usually defined as two populations that can't mate. And that doesn't really work all the time because, ligers exist, tigers and lions exist. There's a sturtle fish now that is a Russian sturgeon and an American paddlefish. Or maybe it's an American sturgeon. Anyway, it's one of those two species. They're separated by several million years of evolution, and of course, they're on completely different continents. And by the way, they can mate. And they produce a very ugly looking child fish. It's also a mule, so it's not a new species or anything like that. But we see this all the time and then you have ring species, which is also very common, where this idea of they can't mate, straw manning and lying about evolution. And at this point, I really have to say they're lying about evolution. There is no reason for them to continue saying what they're saying, given the fact that how many actual research papers are available online for anybody to read for free or almost free in many cases. There's a few paywalls out there here and there, but for the most part, you can read this stuff. And so if you're still ignorant on it, that's a you problem. That's not an us problem. And I have no problem calling you a liar to your face because you have the ability to find out. It's not polite, so you may not do it all the time, but
Yeah. All right. Well, we do have our first call. And it's Emery from California. Hi there, Emery. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
What do you want to talk about?
Hello. Yeah.
Hey,
so I wanted to talk about just like how hard it is to talk skeptically with people who just the average person. I have a few examples from recent conversations I've had with my mom and my sister, and it's just like really hard to like just teach basic skepticism properly to people. And so I just wanted to kind of like talk about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think most people don't.
Sorry, Jim.
Go ahead,
I was going to ask you what you thought about it first before I jumped in.
Yeah, it is because most people don't really want to. They have better things they want to do, whether it's watch the Kardashians or go wash a car or go do their favorite thing. And so I think that's a large part of how hard it is to talk about skepticism, talk about thinking and all those types of things. It's just not everybody wants to do it, and they're perfectly happy with where they are. I think it's that old thing of, before you can change somebody, they have to want to change, is part of it. And also it's a skill. It's a skill that you have to develop over time, and developing that skill with your family is probably the hardest way to develop it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. The thing that I would probably suggest is watching some of these like Anthony Magnabosco, those that do street epistemology. Yeah. Watching those channels and those videos can really help you learn better ways to interact with people that that you feel maybe not exactly grasping some of the concepts like evolution all that well, and it can show you how to sort of talk to them and just sort of ask questions and get them to critically think. I think Anthony Magnabosco does a great job of talking to people and getting them to really critically think about the reasons why they believe certain things or the reasons why they have certain conclusions. Now, that doesn't mean that they're automatically going to come to some kind of rational, conclusion for anything. But what it can help you do is it can help you lead them in a direction of critically thinking about it. And maybe, maybe you won't have any kind of effect like in the moment, but if you talk to them enough and you stay on it, then, you can eventually get to the point where, they're critically thinking on their own about things, and it can help them in general, not just with like questions about evolution or faith in God or anything like that. It can just in general help them learn how to critically think. So the Socratic method, which is what primarily what they use there, and that's just basically asking questions and getting people to explain why they're convinced of something, and then doing sort of a compare and contrast between what they believe and the reasons why they believe it, and somebody else that holds a drastically different position, and it's like the exact same reasons why. That can really help them realize some things. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I feel like that was kind of the method I used more recently when I was having a conversation with my mom. So my mom is still very religious and doesn't believe in evolution, but she doesn't really talk much about her beliefs with me or anything. But recently I found out that she believes in Bigfoot. And I thought that was the weirdest thing, since she doesn't believe in evolution, but does believe in Bigfoot. And so I was like asking her these questions and like trying to figure out why she believed that. And it just was kind of surprising to me, because then I started asking her other stuff, just other basic science things. And she's like, see other like conspiracies she may have fallen into. And she believes in the moon landing. She, whatever. But I was like, well, if you, because she also doesn't believe that aliens have visited Earth. So I was like, well, do you? There's lots of people that have the same amount of evidence they do for Bigfoot, and like people have told stories and this and that, and like, why do you not believe them in those cases, but you do for Bigfoot? And she just like kind of stopped, and I could tell she was like actually thinking about it, but then was like, I don't know, I just do. And so it's just like I got so far, so close.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that's the hardest answer to overcome.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about a second ago, is just that, you may not have like an immediate effect in the moment, but, getting them to think like that can help them later on when they're considering like, different things and comparing and contrasting. They may do that on their own. So.
Yeah.
And again, I would practice on strangers before I started practicing on family. I think family interactions always come with all the baggage. And when you're dealing, like when I deal with my parents, everything I ever did wrong is coming along behind me, even though that stuff happened, 30 and 40 years ago. Now they still remember it, and they still remember me being a kid screwing up, and a kid not having his head screwed on straight. And so all that baggage comes along with when you're dealing with parents and siblings and everything else. Everything you've ever done is part of that conversation. And so practicing with strangers might actually be somewhat helpful in developing the skill. It's lower risk for doing that and having those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I used to teach science to younger elementary school kids and stuff, and I almost feel like I got to use my skills I used doing that when talking to other adults, and it's just bizarre because I'm like, wait, shouldn't you know how to think like this already? And
Yeah, no. I mean, if they don't have an interest in science or math, there's really no other way for the average student to run into critical thinking skills because it's not taught as a class. And you typically get them in science and math classes, or sociology is a science. Don't get me wrong, but the way it's taught in schools, I think, is science adjacent. And that's not to say that sociology itself is not a science, because I think it is. Just the way that it's taught in schools, history, English, and writing, and all the other skills that you get aren't really oriented towards that type of critical thinking. And I think the way that most math is taught is also not super helpful. At least it wasn't for me in developing critical thinking skills, despite what everybody said. Um, but so that just depends, I guess, on what they're interested in as to whether or not they actually develop those skills and what they did in high school and college as well. And if you don't get into the hard sciences, you don't get into the engineering side of things, you don't get into the sciences, I should say hard sciences, but if you don't get into or engineering or any of these other disciplines that, law or pre-law that require you to think and to make arguments, then it's a very different world to where they haven't been exposed to it. So yeah, you do have to sometimes start at the beginning.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Emery, for calling in. Was there anything else that you had a question about?
No, I mean, I could talk about this all day, but that was really all I wanted to talk about.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you calling in, and we hope you will call in the future. Although maybe in the future, I don't know if you were on speakerphone or you were just really close to the phone, but you were clipping a little bit. But we're kind of at the end of our conversation now, which really helps. I know. But really appreciate you calling in, and I hope you calling back in the future.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Speaking of conversation skills, there are two really good shows to watch to develop your conversation skills as well. Columbo, who is the master of interrogation. I mean, everything from the car he drives to the clothes he wears is part of his interrogation skills. But also Johnny Carson is a master conversationalist, because that's what he did every night for 30 years. And so watching him have even difficult conversations with people sitting there on his couch in just a few minutes, I think is also really good. Two really good examples to watch for conversational skills in general, just because they are so good at it. And yeah, Columbo's scripted, but it's well done for doing that type of thing. But those are two really good shows. There's probably some others out there too.
Okay, cool. I mean, I've watched a number of shows because they do communicate good things of that nature. So it can be quite interesting what you can learn from even scripted shows. Next up, we've got Mary from Florida. I'm so sorry you're in Florida, but thank you, Mary, for calling in.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm here too. Thank you, GE and Jim. Jim, I know you were raised Catholic. I was raised Southern Baptist, and I had a neighbor that used to live next door, and she knew I was an atheist, and so we would discuss, and she was pretty hardcore Catholic, and I'm just wondering if you could explain to me the apparent guilt trip that Catholicism puts on their members. Because I would talk about it with her, and she said, it's man's fault. What are they doing in the Catholic Church to make them so riddled with guilt? If you could help me kind of understand that.
A large part of Catholicism is shame, being ashamed of things. And of course, that's a horrible, horrible emotional manipulation to anybody. It has very, very bad consequences to it. But it's also effective in changing behavior and controlling behavior to an extent too. So yeah, I don't know how they did it. I've never actually looked at how it was done. But I went to Catholic schools. When I was going to Catholic schools, we were going to CCD, which is the Catholic, I forget what CCD stands for anyway. It's after school Catholic classes, basically. But yeah, a large part of it was, here's this great sacrifice and you're not worthy of it. And you should be ashamed of that and work to improve that. And that was definitely a message that you get from being Catholic. And I think that everything is in the Catholic Church. It's iconography. It's the way the churches are designed. Is all geared toward making you feel small and insignificant. Very often the biggest piece of art in a Catholic church is the cross. And it's rarely just a cross. It's always the hanging Jesus there. And then you always have the Stations of the Cross. The whole story of Jesus is from the moment he was condemned by Pilate until he got onto the cross is there commemorated in some way, shape, or form. And you go in and you can look at like some of the basilicas, the big churches that Catholics put up. And I mean, those are huge monuments to God and designed again to make you feel very small. The only real big open areas in a lot of churches, Catholic churches, are where the altar is and the images of God, and everything else is designed to make you kind of smaller. Now, some more modern Catholic churches are getting away from that. They're starting to look like what I call theaters, which is what I think of. Because I've been in some Southern Baptist churches and some other Protestant churches, and some of them to me just seem like, compared to a Catholic church, it's just huge testaments to the preacher's ego, because they make the preacher the biggest part of the whole thing. You don't have anywhere near all that artwork. And I think all that is geared towards, it's geared towards teaching, because the Catholic Church existed before the printing press, which is not true of all the Protestant churches. And so you have to communicate all these ideas and the stories and everything else in some way, shape, or form. And I think the Catholic Church is masterful at that, because it had to be, existing before the printing press, before people could read, and you're doing the Mass in a language nobody around you understands, like Latin. That gets to be a problem. Communication gets to be a problem, and I think they solve that masterfully. But I haven't actually looked at it from that point of view, and I probably should, because I think that might be interesting to look at how the Catholic Church instills shame in its followers in many cases.
But what was strange with my neighbor? Go ahead, GE.
Well, I was gonna say I grew up Catholic as well. But I wasn't a good Catholic. I mean, I was pretty young, so I just kind of took everything that they told me as true. So I didn't really think too deep about what I believed as a Catholic. But interestingly enough, I do see this is one connection that I see between both Catholics and Protestants, especially the more fundamentalist version of Protestants now, is that, they have this whole idea that, nothing you do will ever be good enough, and like you can't be good enough. Like it's a whole thing in Christianity to teach you that you are not good enough, because that's the reason why we needed a savior. And basically, Jesus becomes sort of this shield to them that sort of it kind of masks you, into getting into heaven. And this kind of has a backfiring effect to me, though, this particular kind of idea, because then that means that nothing you do in this life, like as far as the moral implications of any of your actions, don't really mean anything. It just matters whether or not you believe in Jesus. But the shameful part of it is basically just whittling you down emotionally to the point where you develop this toxic codependent relationship on Jesus and God. And I think that if they can whittle you down to that point where you feel like, you in order to be fulfilled in some kind of way, or in order to be good enough, I guess, I feel like that can up the retention, of the faith, keep people in the faith, keep them tithing, keep them supporting the church and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that that's kind of where it all kind of comes back to for me. Christianity starts with, shaming human beings, and all throughout the Bible, it's nothing but shaming people for either gaining knowledge, thinking for themselves, or thinking that they're good enough, without God. And I'm not saying that's what the entire Bible's about, obviously, but I'm saying that that's like a major theme that I've gotten as I've read the Bible. So I think that that's probably where it comes from, at least from my point of view, is just this need to whittle the person down into this toxic codependent relationship.
Well, what was strange was that my former neighbor, she was a lesbian, and I said, I told her, I said, well, the Catholic Church is against, homosexuality and lesbians and gays. And she said, one day she said to me, I did a face plant. She said, but they're coming around. I was
so
I busted out laughing. I was like, I don't know about that, but she was just like so sucked into it, and I just found it. I couldn't comprehend what she was trying to make sense of it.
Yeah. So the church isn't going to excommunicate you anymore. And I say anymore. It's probably been at least a century since they've done anything like that for being gay or LGBTQIA. They're not going to do that anymore. They recognize that doesn't get anybody anywhere. But they do want you to stop going to communion until you're really sorry and apologize to God for being the way He made you, type thing, And so so it's not that the church will ever come to accept it. It's just that they recognize that, at least in this one case, telling people they're bad for being, LGBTQIA is not helping. That the only way to help them is to keep them in the church, and hopefully you can convince them not to be who they are, which of course probably never work. But Catholic Church is based on hope in many ways, so maybe they just hope that. But yeah, it is kind of flabbergasting that they think that the Catholic Church will ever come around to that.
Yeah, and she was my neighbor for 20 years, and I never knew her to attend church ever.
Yeah.
But it was,
yeah,
but she went to Catholic schools as a young girl, and just was so heavily indoctrinated, and I would show her really, atheist memes of Catholic Church stuff, and she was, I don't want to see that, but I was, we could have a good conversation.
Right. Yeah, and that's good too. But yeah, not wanting to pay attention to the things that the Catholic Church is doing, like, playing hide a priest when they're accused of grave crimes, sex abuse, murder, whatever it is. The Catholic Church has a long history of hiding them. And yeah, there's a lot of Catholics are just that way. I offended a friend of mine. We went to an event at her local parish, and every time the priest walked over to talk to the kids, I was kind of like right there. She's like, "Why are you doing that?" I was like, "He's a priest."
Oh,
that's not right. I was like, "Yeah, but it's also true."
If I was in that situation, I could totally see myself being like, danger, danger, danger. Watch out, kids.
Yeah.
Like the
because the
robot
church
from
doesn't
that.
vet. Yeah,
Like the robot
they don't
from
vet
that early
anymore.
space show where he's waving his arms,
Yep. Lost in Space.
All right. Well,
which is also not an early. The new one is actually really, really good. If you have the chance to catch the new Lost in Space, they have done a really good job with it. But yeah, it's still Danger Will Robinson.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for the Catholic guilt trip. It's. I just find it just odd that even a lesbian who was so indoctrinated as a child and didn't attend as an adult is just still clinging to it, and we would have really good talks, but a lot of times she was like, I don't want to see that meme, I don't want to hear what you have to say, but
right.
All right, thank you. I just kind of wanted to get a Catholic viewpoint because I was Southern Baptist, fire and brimstone, you're going to burn in hell. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you for giving me the info, and you two have a good evening.
Okay, thanks.
All right, you do the same there, Mary.
All right, thank you.
What I think is interesting is you and I could have a conversation about our Catholic upbringings, and it would be two completely different religions almost in some ways, because so much of Catholicism is local, and your local group, and Catholicism was so widespread that German Catholics and Irish Catholics aren't as Italian Catholics, and so you can have really, really different experiences growing up in the Catholic Church, and all of them be correct because they're just your local Catholic Church.
Yeah, definitely. We're about to get to our next call, which I'm really excited about, just so that people know. But I do want to let people know about the Patreon. You can help the line here by going to patreon.com/call the line, and you can become a patron now, and you can help support this channel. And another way to support the channel is to watch all of the shows that we've got going on here throughout the week. Like tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Central, we've got Dying Out Loud with Dave Warnock and Brad. I'm going to butcher this, but Brad Onishi. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Correct.
And correct. I got it. And then Wednesday, there's the Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty and Forrest Valkai. And then on Thursday, we've got Takis with Arden Hart and Katy Montgomerie. And so that's what we got coming up this week. So if you want to help support the channel, either go to patreon.com/call the line or just watch our shows. Both of those things help support us here.
Real quick, I put a poll in chat, and 200 people have voted so far. 12% of you said you believe in Bigfoot. So please, somebody who believes in Bigfoot, call in and tell our host why you believe in Bigfoot. Let's be skeptics and examine, like SkepTalk. Let's SkepTalk about it.
Right. Yeah. And I do have experience debating somebody that believes in Bigfoot. So I know the evidence for it. If you want me to tell you why you're wrong, call in, because I'd love to tell you about that. But just to let people know, we do still have lines open. So if you want to call in, the number is 720-619-2288. You can call in and talk to us about Bigfoot, God, doesn't really matter. Just let me know what you want to talk about. So next up, we've got Steven from Florida. Again, I'm so sorry you're calling from Florida, but hi, Steven.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah,
pretty good. How you doing?
Florida, but I'm doing well. It's Florida, but it's getting to the cool part of the day, so it's not hellish right now.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I saw your post in the Mythicists versus Historicists group, saying, basically challenging anybody who wants to defend the historicity of Jesus of Nazareth. And I figured I'd pick up on that.
Do it.
So, all right. So, in the first century, Palestine and in parts of Greece, we have all these figures who were miracle workers, right? They're not real miracle workers, but there are stories about them, like Pythagoras. Pythagoras was earlier, but Honi the circle maker, and Hanina Bendoza, and there's one more, Apollonius of Tyana. And we also have these failed messiahs like Anthronges the shepherd, Judas the Galilean, Theodos, the Samaritan prophet. So we got Jesus of Nazareth, who fits all these categories. He's an alleged miracle worker, and he's a failed messiah. And so it just seems to me that that Jesus fits as one of these figures that all existed.
Well, no,
everyone
hold on.
agrees
You say
existed.
that he's a hold on. You say that he's a failed Messiah. Could you? I mean, where exactly is it that he's a failed Messiah?
Well, he got crucified by the Romans. That's as much of a failure as you can get.
You're going to need to provide evidence that that's a failure. Do the Christians see that as a failure?
Well, no, but the Christians were able to adapt to that failure and change the definition of what it counts to be a Messiah.
Can you establish? Hold on. Can you establish that the Jews thought that being crucified or that a suffering and dying Messiah would be a failure?
Well, the Jews saw the purpose of the Messiah as one who would reestablish the Davidic dynasty, to continue the throne of David, which had been discontinued centuries ago. Jesus did not do that, obviously, and also the Messiah was someone who was supposed to.
Where are you getting this from? Where are you getting this from? Where are you getting this particular set of?
From the Hebrew scriptures themselves, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all the scriptures that talk about who the Messiah is supposed to be.
Oh, okay. Well, the suffering servant in Isaiah 52 and 53 has the Messiah dying, like being killed. He suffers and he dies, and then he resurrects, which is exactly what we find.
No evidence. But there's absolutely no evidence that the suffering servant of Isaiah 53 is a messianic figure. He's not called the Messiah.
There is.
Called a king.
There is. I mean, you're just simply wrong about this.
Like that.
Have you heard of rabbinical scholar Daniel Boyron? Have you heard about the rabbinical scholar? Have you heard of rabbinical scholar Daniel Boyron?
Name doesn't ring a bell.
That tracks. So Daniel Boyron wrote a book called The Jewish Gospels, the story of the Jewish Christ. And he starts out his section discussing this by saying it has, and I'm quoting from the book, it has been generally assumed by modern folks, that Jews have always given the passage a metaphorical meaning. This is Isaiah 52 to 53, understanding the suffering servant to refer to the people of Israel, and that it was the Christians who changed and distorted its meaning to make it refer to Jesus, which is what you started off by saying, is that the Christians sort of retconned Jesus's death so that it can make sense. So you basically espouse what he says that generally people assume now. But Daniel goes on to say, quite to the contrary, we now know that many Jewish authorities, maybe even most, until the nearly modern period, have read Isaiah 53 as being about the Messiah. Until the last few centuries, the allegorical reading was a minority position. He continues on in his book here to say that there are, moreover, traditions in the Babylonian Talmud, and thus attested from the 4th to 6th centuries AD, but very likely earlier because of what the Talmud is. The Talmud records Jewish sentiments from about 20 BCE all the way up to the 6th century CE. Continuing, the most famous and explicit of which is the Sanhedrin 98b, and this is amongst many different references in it, referring to the Messiah. The Talmud asks there openly, what is his name? And various names are proffered by different rabbis, and after several different views, we find it saying, and the rabbis say the leper of the house of Rabbi is his name, for it says, behold, he has borne our disease and suffered our pains, and we thought him smitten, beaten by God, and tortured. Isaiah 53:4. We see here both the vicarious suffering of the Messiah and the use of Isaiah 53 to anchor this idea. And he goes on in this particular section of his book to reinforce the fact that ever since the early days of Judaism, like 20 BCE onward, you have rabbinical teachers that are interpreting Isaiah 52 and 53, the suffering servant passages, as being about the Messiah. Not only do we have that, but we've also got the wisdom of Solomon, which was very important to the first century Christians and Jews. And it's very easy to see in chapters 2 and 5 that the righteous one, or this anointed one, the Christ, the Messiah, is to be shamed and is to be killed, and in a very shameful way, and is also to be resurrected into this sort of kingly position over everybody else. So we have multiple different lines of evidence that show a pre-Christian idea of a suffering and dying Messiah that's put to death in a shameful manner. Now, if you were in the first century, one of the ways that you could be shamefully put to death is being crucified. So it kind of makes it seem like that there's ample evidence in Jewish scripture in order to invent this idea of the Messiah suffering, dying by crucifixion, and then resurrecting in order to absolve our sins. So, I mean, there is evidence. You can't say that there's no evidence, because there's obviously evidence.
Okay, so you brought up a whole list of examples there, and I'd have to go through and look at them again. But I mean, do you think that it's the consensus position that scholars think that Isaiah 53 is pointing to a messianic figure? Because I mean, scholars such as Bart Ehrman, John J. Collins, and Peter Flint, they think that there is no evidence that Isaiah 53 is messianic at all.
Okay. So you've brought up 3 names, and here I am just going to totally destroy your list. So not only do we have rabbinical scholar Daniel Boyron who connects this, but we've also got Jason A. Staples, who had Dr. Ehrman as a dissertation advisor. Dr. Ehrman had to sign off on this one specific footnote in Jason Staples' dissertation. He says the oft-repeated dictum that there is no evidence for the concept of a suffering and dying anointed one or messianic interpretation of the suffering servant in pre-Christian Judaism is therefore mistaken. So now we've got 2. Boyron, we've got Jason A. Staples.
So you cited an
Boyron,
opinion.
hold on. I'm not done. It's a dissertation which has at least 4 academics that are reviewing it and passing it as being sound argumentation. So there's that. Now there's Staples, you got Boyron, and then you got Martin Hengel, who is also quoted by Daniel Boyron in this particular respect. Jason A. Staples lists William Brownlee from 1953, who was talking about A. DuPont Somner, who was speaking about the suffering servant connection. And on top of all that, Jason Staples also lists Louis Ginsburg's, the oldest interpretation of the suffering servant, John Goldingay's commentary on Daniel, and Portier Young's Apocalypse Against Empire. Not only do we have all of these, but we've also got Raphael Lataster, who has also put through peer review this particular argument about the suffering servant. Now, you've got all of these people right here, 9, and then you add on top of that all of these are peer-reviewed papers and books and everything like that. So the reviewers are going to multiply by at least 2, except for in the case of Jason Staples, who had probably about 4 academic reviewers pass his particular thing. So you're talking about over 2 dozen people that are attesting to the fact that the suffering servant is considered the Messiah early in Judaism prior to Christianity.
Okay,
so
can I ask
sure,
you a question?
your three scholars are impressive, bro.
Okay. Can I ask you something?
That's what this entire show is about.
Do you realize that one thing that mythicists and Christian fundamentalists have in common is they both want Isaiah 53 to point to the Messiah, to be a messianic passage, because Christian fundamentalists
you see, you're adding a lot onto this by saying that we want anything to be true. You're putting a lot onto it, saying that we want anything to be true.
But you do agree that Christian fundamentalists do want Isaiah 53 to be messianic. So
I think that what Christian fundamentalists want does not matter in this particular conversation. They think that a Jew resurrected from the dead, along with most. Hold on. Oh, well, and you know what? This is my show. I will mute you if you don't stop. Okay? Now, what I don't care what Christian fundamentalists want. I know what I want, and what I want is the truth. And when I look at the academia on this particular point, it points in the direction of the suffering servant being the Messiah, or at least being interpreted as the Messiah early in Judaism, which then influenced Christianity.
Okay, second question. How many of those scholars that you listed are Christian fundamentalists who want Isaiah 53 to be pointing to Jesus? Because I know at least one of them is Martin Hengel. I'm sorry.
Are you attacking the person instead of the argument? Is that your point on this question? Is to attack the person, not the argument?
No. I'm just pointing out.
Oh, it sounds like
the objective of these scholars is. Would you trust?
So yeah, you're attacking. You're not attacking the arguments they're making. You're not attacking the arguments. You're attacking the person.
Scholars who want to prove the Exodus. I mean.
Well,
I want to know what their arguments are. I don't care who says it.
Right, exactly, Jim. Now, you know what's really weird is that hold on. What's really weird is this whole idea communicated in the Talmud, which is a Jewish book, a Jewish collection of books, and they develop a similar idea than Christians do. Or that Christians do, except the Jews, they have this idea of two messiahs. One is to suffer and die, just like the suffering servant in Isaiah 53, but also in other works as well. But they have a second messiah that comes in and resurrects the first. So there's that particular theology. Now, one key thing about this is that nobody in the Talmud, no rabbis, seem to feel it necessary to mention how the Christians got things wrong. Like, they don't mention that they got things wrong about Jesus dying or Jesus at all. In fact, the only Jesus that's actually mentioned existed 100 years prior to when the Jesus of Christianity existed. And he was killed in a similar fashion, but in a totally different place for totally different reasons, using a totally different method of execution by totally different people.
How do you know it's Jesus of Christianity when Jesus was a common name?
I didn't say. I said that it wasn't the Jesus of Christianity. I told you the reasons why it wasn't the Jesus of Christianity. I'm saying
then
that the Talmudic, I'm saying that the only Jesus that is in the Talmud that's mentioned by the rabbis of the Talmud existed 100 years prior to when the Jesus of Christianity is said to have existed and done all of his works and everything like that. So I'm saying that the Talmudic Jews, the rabbis, they had no idea about this Jesus person. Now, I'm not using this as like an argument from silence or anything. My point is that this tradition in the Talmud reaches far back enough to where they didn't have to worry about any other person trying to claim the messiahship and everything. They developed this whole idea of a dying Messiah prior to the Christians claiming that their Messiah had died.
Well, as I understand it, it's not the consensus of scholars that Isaiah 53 is pointing to a messianic figure. That's the opinion of some scholars, certainly, but I don't think that it has.
I mean, you gave me 3 scholars. I listed off over 24. Well, technically, I listed off about 12. No. Well, I mean, you're. Hold on.
Yeah,
Who?
Can
you answer me?
Wait. Hold on. Just real quick, both of you. So you said that the consensus of scholarship is John points out that he gave you more scholars than you did, and therefore the consensus is on his side. And now you're going to claim ad populum? Is consensus ad populum? And is John not actually making a consensus argument here? How do you get ad populum for that? Or is it just that you don't like the fact that John has more scholars on his side than yours?
Sorry, he was talking and I muted him, and I'm trying to unmute him, and it's not. Oh, there it goes. It's working. Okay, you're unmuted now.
Well, just because I haven't managed to collect as many scholars, that doesn't make a difference. I mean, if I had more time on my hands, I could comb through pages and pages of scholarly works and probably collect more.
Then how do you know how do you know that you're on the consensus side? How do you know you're on the consensus side? Do you have some evidence that the consensus of scholars is on your side?
Because I think that the scholars that I've mentioned are much more they're considered much more authoritative than the scholars that John's mentioned. Like,
so now we've gone
scholars
from consensus
are better
to
than
authority.
Yours.
Yeah. So now, we've gone from consensus to authority here, right? You're dancing around the fact that you haven't studied much as John has, that you haven't read everything that John has, and so your arguments aren't going to be nearly as nuanced or as accurate as the ones that John's making. Are the 12 people that John actually listed off 9? And then each of those had at least 2 reviewers, and that's how we get to the number we got. And they all had to sign off on these for peer review. You cited 3 scholars. John's also mentioned that the view of Isaiah has changed over time, if I'm correct, John. Am I misstating that? That view has changed over time? So
yeah,
Ehrman could be absolutely correct in what he says, depending on the time period. So you haven't even established the time periods that John's talking about is what Ehrman is talking about, right? There are just holes in your argument that you need to go back and study before you can actually make them. And citing 3, even if one of them is Bart Ehrman, who I have a lot of respect for, I follow his stuff on YouTube. I think he's a great scholar, but I'm not going to say that anything he says is consensus without being in the mix. And as far as I know, there has been no survey of biblical scholars on anything they believe. And I think that there should be, so that someone like John and myself and you can actually know what consensus is. And you don't know what consensus is. John is making, from a certain point of view, an argument by how many people he's got, but he's got more people all saying the same thing. And so right now what we have is consensus is on his side, not yours. And you can claim that,
right. And just
popular if you want.
Just to make a little bit, give a little bit of nuance here. I don't think that the amount of scholars matters. I think that the evidence that is argued by the scholars is what matters. And I feel that the scholars that I have listed, all of them, bringing up the fact that we have rabbis that reach back to 20 BCE that are saying, hey, we are interpreting Isaiah 52 to 53 as being about the Messiah, and a plethora of other tangential facts about this point in time lead me in the direction of agreeing with these scholars. But I do not make the argument, oh, I've got more scholars than you. It was actually Stephen here who brought up, well, here's 3 scholars. And so I was just making the point that oh, nice, 3 scholars. Here's some more scholars for you if that's the route that you want to go. So that's my point that I was
saying.
Have you ever read John
saying a consensus of scholars? There's no difference between saying there's consensus of scholars and ad populum. They're almost the exact same thing. When we say the consensus of scholars, we mean the number of scholars who agree with a particular proposition. It is an ad populum, and it is weak, and so why you got to look at their arguments. But you can complain about you saying consensus and John pointing out that you don't have consensus with what you've already done. That makes no sense. Can't do it.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Okay. John J. Collins' book, The Scepter and the Star, he surveys all the scholars who have argued all of the arguments that Isaiah 53 points to messianic figure or messianic figures in the Dead Sea Scrolls that are supposedly dying messiahs or suffering messiahs, and he's shown why the majority of scholars is not convinced by each of these. And it's a survey of all of these arguments. Have you read that?
I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and ask, have you read it?
Yes,
and
I
mean, okay. Well, what does he say about the Talmud referencing in Sanhedrin 98b? It directly referencing Isaiah 53 in reference to the Messiah.
I have to look that up. I don't have it right in front of me.
All right. Well, maybe you could look it up, and you can, whenever you call in again to have different arguments with me about this, then you can be a little bit better prepared about it. Because I mean, that there are scholars out there that disagree that the interpretation of Isaiah 52 and 53 being about the Messiah is a late development, but all of the scholars that I've listed here today recognize that the rabbinical scholars from 20 BCE onward, in not only in the Talmud but in other things as well, recognize that the Isaiah 52 and 53 is interpreted to be about the Messiah, and this is all pre-Christian too. So I mean, these are. You're going to have to come at me with a little bit more than, this one scholar, said a thing. Like, I would expect some specific arguments if you're going to sway me in one direction or another. Like, you're going to need to tell me, like, why is it that this rabbinical scholar from, 200 CE or earlier mentions Isaiah 52 and 53 being about the Messiah? Why it is that it's not a pre-Christian idea? Also, if you look, another point, if you're looking for actual evidence against your position, in Contra Celsum, Origen does not mention this whole idea that Isaiah 52 and 53 was originally considered to be about like the Israel and not about the Messiah. You don't see him doing any kind of counter apologetics, countering that particular position, which seems to indicate that even early on you have this known idea that Isaiah 52 and 53 is about the suffering and dying Messiah.
He says, "Now I remember that, on one occasion, at a disputation held with certain Jews who were reckoned wise men, I quoted these prophecies, to which my Jewish opponent replied that these predictions bore reference to the whole people regarded as one individual, and as being in a state of dispersion and suffering, in order that many proselytes might be gained, and on account of the dispersion of the Jews among numerous heathen nations." So he's...
What is this?
This is Contra Celsum. That's the quote.
Well, you're just saying this is Contra Celsum, and then you said some things. Where is it?
Contra Celsum, Book 1, Chapter 55, where he talks about the Jewish opponents he was debating with, and they're arguing that the suffering servant is the whole nation, regarded as one individual. Do you want me to repeat the quote?
Let's see. Contra Celsum.
Book 1, Chapter 55.
Book 1, Chapter 55. Now, what I was telling you earlier, just so that people are aware, is in rabbinical scholar Daniel Boyarin, the fact that I was bringing up, aside from one very important but absolutely unique point, notice in Origen's Contra Celsum, there is no evidence at all that any late ancient Jews read Isaiah 52 to 53 as referring to anyone but the Messiah. There are, on the other hand, several attestations of ancient rabbinic readings of this song as concerning the Messiah and his tribulation. So you're saying Contra Celsum, Book 1, Chapter 55.
Origen was referring to a conversation he had in 248 AD. Is that not late? That's pretty late, if you ask me.
I mean, I'm getting to it right now, so just hold your horses. See,
there is no mention that that these Jews he argued with were referring to a messianic figure.
Okay, this is a good thing to chew on, and I will definitely look into it because this. I can't tell you right now like what kind of effect this will have on like Daniel Boyarin, his statement or anything. So I will definitely chew on this and look at it. It's a little hard for me to actually analyze something like on the phone and everything. So I will come better prepared next time that you talk to me.
All right.
But still, this is one reference.
98B then.
Definitely look at Sanhedrin 98B and all that. And we have been going for a long time, and I really do appreciate your call. Very nice, heated exchange about this topic. I really love it. So I appreciate you calling in.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Stephen. I'll talk to you hopefully again in the future.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Whew, that was a good call. Now, Jim, I figure you're probably not on my side of the whole mythicism topic, but that's perfectly fine. Contrary to popular belief,
I am.
Oh, you are?
I am. I'm just not as studied on it as you. By any stretch of the imagination. Because my argument is simply that all four gospels are about theology and not history. And so they promote theological points of view. And so you still need to demonstrate that this particular Jesus Christ actually existed, which of course we can't really do. We can't go back. So it doesn't matter to me if there was an actual guy or it's a group of guys, that were brought into all these tales, because the tales are about theology over history. And it's clear to me, like you've got the problem where the Last Supper in Matthew, Mark, and Luke is at Passover, and in John it's before Passover. Why? Why the discrepancy? And there's apologetics you can make about this. Don't get me wrong, but one, you can't read the Bible literally and take both those as true because they're contradictory. So you have to interpret. But John's message, my understanding of John, is that he is setting up Jesus to be the sacrificial lamb, and he has to be therefore sacrificed on Passover. Therefore, his Last Supper can't be on Passover; it has to be before Passover, because you can't have both at the same time. So you have a theological consideration being made. Whereas if we were to look at the preponderance of the evidence of when the Last Supper was, it would be according to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and not John. So why is that discrepancy there? Obviously, to me, it's theology as opposed to any type of history. They're just making that argument there. So I just haven't gotten as deep into it. Richard Carrier's book is still on my list. Lataster's book, I think it's Lataster's book, it's also on my list to read. Just that I'm a little bit more nuanced on the arguments. But to me, that's the whole argument, right? For me, right there is it's theology, not history. So if you're going to say it's history, you need to go a long way to make that case.
I mean, I think that
Mark and Matthew's got an exact copy of Mark in it, except it adds things to Mark, right?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's a pretty concise way to put it. Is that the story of Jesus is theology. Even in Paul's letters, Jesus is more theology than history, if any history at all. So, all right. So, like I said, that was really interesting to learn that Jim is on my side about that particular topic. That's great to know. So, next up, we've got Philip from South Africa. Hey there, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi, Philip. You
Hello?
doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's like the middle of the night right now. I just can't sleep today.
Okay. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. Happened to me last night.
Yeah.
Not good. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, the thing is, like, I'm 19, and earlier this year, like, something horrible happened to me. So, like, I was going to university, and then all of a sudden I wake up in ICU, and I can't move. So, like, when I woke up in ICU, I had, like, these horrible nightmares, and, like, I was so, like, confused and delirious, and, like, I was actually, like, super scared. I was like, I was trying to understand what was happening to me, and I couldn't communicate to anyone because I had a breathing tube down my throat. So I'm wondering, what the heck happened to me? So that's basically what I want to talk about, like my story with that, and how like and how like that and how that made me think about more about faith, and not really accept it too much, but like think about it more.
Well, what did the doctor say happened to you?
Oh, like the thing is, I only learned 1 month after being in hospital that like the doctors told me that I fell off a 6-story building.
Oh, yeah, that'll leave a mark. I'm sorry to hear that. So I mean, nightmares and ICU psychosis is a thing. My girlfriend's an ICU nurse, and she's talked about that a couple of times. And a large part of that is because they keep waking you up every couple of minutes to, poke, prod, check, make sure that you're doing okay with that, and so you don't get a lot of sleep. Nightmares are things that happen in the brain. So why does this bring up questions of faith to you?
Because in those nightmares, I kept on getting hurt and like getting killed basically. So like in one particular nightmare, like I dreamt that like God was helping all these other people but not me. So then I was like, but why not me? So then I kept on getting hurt.
Why is this simple answer is your brain was simply trying to deal with? I mean, why isn't the simple answer your brain, you were trying to deal with what happened to you and trying to figure out what happened to you? And we were just processing what happened, because what happened was pretty horrific. A fall off a 6-story building, is not something that happens every day. And I can only imagine just how traumatic it would be. So I would expect some trauma from that.
Oh yeah, like now
Did we lose him?
Did we lose him? Philip,
I think we lost him.
Okay, Philip, I don't know if you can hear me, but I think that we may return you to the queue and see if we can get you back here in a little bit. I don't know. We'll return you to the queue and we'll get to you right after this next caller if you can hear us, Philip. All right. Yeah, I mean that was getting a little interesting. What he was recounting there. All right. Well, let's move on to Matt from California. Hey there, Matt. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. How about you?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And you, Jim?
Yeah, I'm doing wonderful. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So the reason I'm calling today, I'm an atheist, but I'm like really into the Bible, almost laughably so. Like even some of my Christian friends kind of have told me I need to get a life when it comes to how much I'm into it. But I've been studying Dr. Carrier's book on the historicity of Jesus for the past 6 or 7 months, and I've found that in debate with some of my historicist friends, it is sort of a challenge to get over the initial hurdle of them just sort of laughing it off or like questioning why I'm even questioning the historicity. You know, it seems like there's a big rabbit hole that you have to get into to really get the full amount of information. You know, you bring up people like Philo of Alexandria, and you start bringing up these mystery cults and gods like Inanna, and they have like no idea what you're talking about. And I don't want to have to sit there for 30 minutes explaining what these things are to people. So well, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you guys think there's a way that I could be more brief with it? Like just more succinct in a way that's approachable, that's not going to just be laughed off?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts there, Jim, about this before I get into whatever I'm going to say?
I mean, you're talking about deep subjects that you have studied for a while, and it's kind of like me trying to talk about software engineering to a layperson who may or may not have any interest in software engineering. And so there's a lot of technical terms and a lot of background that you need, and trying to go into all that minutia to talk about something that is relatively easy for you is always hard. Doesn't matter what the subject is. Any subject that has deep technical details is not always going to be accessible to everybody, and that is always going to be a challenge for you. I think my synopsis of it's theology, not history, and then a couple of examples as why, it's very flippant, and it doesn't do the justice to any of the research that Dr. Carrier or any other ethicist, including John, has done on the subject to actually prove the point. But also that reflects my level of interest at the moment, and that is changing as I get more into things and want to know more. So I think part of it might be judge your audience and then stay at a level that you think they can understand and try not to get into the weeds. But John's probably had more experience with this than I have, so I'll let him go deep.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that I might go about it, if I was having a conversation with, I guess maybe a theist that is wanting to argue or talk about the historicity of Jesus, I mean, to be honest, I would probably just stick with like the New Testament stuff, like specifically Paul's letters, because Paul's letters are written by a person that claims to be Paul, and he makes a number of vague statements that have been interpreted as being about a historical Jesus, but you can have conversations about those. And so typically the point that I make is just that, well, I don't believe, or I think that Jesus was most probably I think Jesus is most probably a mythical figure, like entirely, because there's no direct evidence that there was a guy, and the Paul's epistles doesn't have any clear cut like verses that say Jesus was a historical figure. And I think that if you stay within the vertical of like Judaism and Christianity, you probably have a good chance of reaching them a little bit more than you would if you start bringing up like all of the supporting information, like all of the different Mediterranean savior gods and the mystery cults that existed at the time, and how the mystery cults had fictional savior deities, and Jesus seems to be just another Mediterranean savior deity that was fictional. It's just that Jesus comes from Judaism, or is fabricated, using Judaism. I think that if you get into like that kind of area, they can easily laugh you off in some kind of way. But I think that if you start by looking at what evidence does Christianity have for an actual person named Jesus, and then go from there, I think that you could probably, start it at an easier point and then sort of lead them through the topic pretty easily.
Right. Yeah. And, I think that definitely makes sense. Because I remember in my upbringing, I've been an atheist for quite some time, but growing up, I remember one of the things they sort of hammered into us was Jesus was completely different than every other god that's ever been spoken about. So, and I didn't even think about that until you brought that up. As soon as you start unpacking those things about, the parallels with the other gods, even the stuff with like Dr. Dennis R. MacDonald and his parallels with ancient Greek mythology and Mimesis and stuff, they sort of start to shut down because they're, for lack of a better word, programmed to think that Jesus is automatically, unique. And it was, even being an atheist, when I first heard about mythicism, it was pretty shocking to me to see all these parallels, just because I had that very idea. But I guess the only other thing I have to ask, John, I've noticed that I'm sure you're familiar with Gnostic informant Neil.
Yeah, a little bit.
I've noticed that he kind of has a criticism for you. Like, it seems like he's got a little bit of a thing going on for you. Have you ever considered talking to him or maybe Derek at Mythvision?
Well, so if you go to my channel, which is Godless Engineer, not meaning to shamelessly plug here on the line, but if you go to my channel, I have had conversations with both Neil and Derek, and Derek knows that we both disagree, and we've had conversations about how we disagree, and so we've had those discussions, and we're fine with each other about it. I'm cool with him, thinking there was a historical Jesus, and I'm guessing he's fine with me still being a mythicist. Now, as far as Neil goes, I have to be very careful about what I say. I will never be in the same hangout, chat room, or any kind of discussion with Neil of Gnostic Informant. He has burned that bridge for me. And for anybody that doesn't know about the entire thing about it, I think there's a playlist on my channel. He has effectively burned that bridge for me. So no, I will not talk to Neil. Neil can scream into the abyss for all I care. But I'm more than happy to have conversations with other people about the topic and about different points that Neil brings up. But Neil is just a no-go for me. That's one of those no-goes, hard no. Yeah.
I've noticed he is a little bit kind of fiery when he's talking. He tends to lose control a little bit sometimes, I think. I do enjoy his content though. But yeah, I appreciate your guys' time today. I thank you for the insight and the advice. And And I hope the rest of the calls go well for you.
All right. Well, I thank you so much there, Matt. Thank you for calling in. I hope you call in again in the future.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
All right. See you later. All right. Oh, sorry. Were you going to say? Oh, Jim, I think. Are you muted?
Oh, I was muted because my dog started to bark. Yeah, talking technical stuff with non-technical folk is always interesting as to how much background you really have to give in order for them to understand it, and how do you give that background so that you don't distract from what you're actually the point you're actually trying to make. That's never an easy, especially in a conversation, never easy to do.
Yeah, it really isn't. And also the I guess the sort of environment around the question of whether or not Jesus existed as a person is rather contentious, and what I feel is for no good reason. It can be a little difficult to navigate the conversation if you're not ready for how contentious it is. So,
yeah.
Let's check it back in with Philip to see if Philip is back, because I'd really love to see if we can get him back. Hey, Philip,
Hello,
are you
guys.
there? Hey.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So, where did we leave off with you? I know that you were, huh? Oh, yeah. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay.
I think I was saying that, like, I agree with, like, the simple answer that, like, my brain was trying to process what I was going through, and that, like, I was just trying to, like, emotionally attach myself to something to try and, like, get through it. But like you see, the thing is, before this and during this, like, the whole time I was an atheist, and because I, like, logically I couldn't accept. So, but like, emotionally, I kept on trying to, like, attach myself to be like, Jesus, take the wheel, but it wasn't working. So, like, I kept on struggling with that in my hospital stay, because, like, everyone was pressuring me, the nurses, the other patients, the family. So it was kind of hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of pressure can be pretty hard
on you. Yeah. But again, I mean, what about your experience do you think was mystical or in evidence that counters all the evidence against being a God? Well, lack of God. How does your experience provide evidence for a God?
Well, it wasn't really evidence. It was more like I felt like I owed it, because I got, like, a second chance at life. Basically, that's how I felt. But, like, in ICU, even though I didn't know how I got injured, I knew I got injured pretty bad because I couldn't move my body at all. So I was like, I must have gotten a second chance at life. So, like, I kept on thinking irrationally that, like, I have to accept something.
Well, you can accept the fact that you got very lucky, right?
Yeah, now I accept that fact, at least.
And I mean,
because, like,
I was just gonna say I generally see it as more like I've got a second chance to do what I want to with my life, because this is the only life that I've got, and so that I've got to make the most of it. I don't know whether or not there is something after this life, but the one thing that I do know is that I have this life, and so I get the inclination to want to cling on to something like supernatural like God, but for me, I guess I just focus on what I know to be true. And the one thing that I know to be true is that I'm here now. And so I kind of focus on that instead of like whether or not there is an afterlife and what are the requirements for getting into this afterlife, or what are the requirements for all this. Cause you could look at different religions everywhere and find different requirements for attaining the ideal afterlife. And I think that, there's no way to know any of that, but what you do know is what you have now and making the most out of this life instead of allowing like religion or some kind of supernatural idea to restrict, your life.
Yeah, like I completely agree. Like when I was in hospital, at least there was like one doctor who told me that you don't have to force yourself to believe anything. Like it only took that one person out of everyone going at counter. It only took that one person to be like, for me to finally just relax and stop trying to cling on to something. So I'm quite happy that there was at least one person in hospital that was thinking about that. And the really funny thing that I developed in the hospital is that like the only songs like my family would let me have were like Christian songs. So like all day I'd be listening to Christian songs, and I kind of like Christian songs even though I don't really accept the words. It's just like I'm just listening for enjoyment all the whole time.
Yeah, and that's just another form of peer pressure, making you listen to, music. And I will admit, some of the gospel music is fantastic. The Gregorian chants are always fun to listen to. So yeah, the music is fun, but I mean that's just more pressure that's put on you to try to get you to believe in something you don't want to believe by repeating it at a moment that you are at your weakest, both mentally and physically at that point. To try and get you to change your mind. It's a very dishonest tactic. And I don't think they think of it that way. I think they think of it as saving your soul, and anything works for that. But it is a very dishonest tactic that if they have to resort to that to convince you they're right, I mean, that just kind of proves how little evidence there really is, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Like I know my family were all just trying to do the best for me, and like I'm kind of not like irritated or like angry at them, because like I know their intentions and I know they love me a lot. So like I kind of like just go with the flow and just make them happy so that everything's fine.
I think that one of the biggest things that a lot of atheists struggle with is finding community and support that's not so focused on like religious ideas or religious sentiments. Like I know for me, I live in North Alabama here in the United States, and it can be difficult here, because I'm pretty much surrounded by conservatives and religious people, and so it can be difficult to navigate those particular topics around here. But also, it's a little hard to find support groups or people in general that are of like mind that can help you I guess deal with those instances of this like peer pressure or pressure in general from other people about these types of things. So I think that's one of the biggest struggles that atheists have, just because of how prevalent religiosity is in our society. And I think that it will continue to be that way until religiosity sort of gets to a certain level, like a much lower level than it is now. And I think that it's probably one of the hardest things to cope with.
Yeah, like one of the things that I'm most happy about is that like I watched Aron Ra a lot before this happened, and watching him a lot like taught me how to like critically think and stuff. So logically, I always knew I always knew that I couldn't accept it, even though like emotionally I would keep on being like, but I need to, or like the pain would say, but you need to. But logically, like the entire time, I just kept on saying, well, you can't say that it's true. There's no evidence. So that's one of the things that at least helped me get through it, and shows like this and other shows on YouTube really helped with that. So at least like there's an online community that's like easily accessible. So that's very helpful.
Oh yeah, I understand that. I mean, I can't tell you how many of the creators here on YouTube really, them producing content and me being able to consume it helped me, as I was kind of navigating the landscape. So I totally agree with you on that one. Well, Philip, I really appreciate you calling in today and everything, and giving us the opportunity to talk about this kind of thing. Unless there's any other questions that you have, we do have one last caller to get to before we close out tonight.
What I'd like to ask is like at least I got like really lucky, and like I'll be able to like walk properly and stuff. I'll be able to do most normal things. So like one last thing is like, do you guys have any advice for like recovery?
I know for me at least, that's really out of my realm of expertise as far as recovery goes. I don't really know a lot about South Africa and resources around there. I know that there are plenty of organizations based in the United States that can provide a lot of emotional support. Recovering from religion, that's one. I'm not exactly sure about their international resources, but they do have online resources where you can talk to somebody. And so there's that's just the Secular Therapy Project. Yeah, that's a really good one too. So there are online resources from different organizations that are based in either the United States or some of these other countries. So that I would probably direct you to them because they are more adept at providing this kind of input, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
And a Secular Therapy Project, they're going international, last I heard, along with RFR. So if they don't have resources in South Africa quite yet, call therapists and ask them questions. I think correctly, Secular Therapist Project on their website has a set of questions you can ask to vet your local therapists. Make sure that they are working with evidence-based therapy and not going to hit you with a bunch of religion. So hopefully those resources will help.
I'll definitely try them.
All right, Philip, I really appreciate you calling in, and I hope that we can hear from you in the future.
Bye.
All
right. Bye, Philip.
And real quick, in chat, via Hundo Pelo Mundo, call, bring it, bring your A game. If you got evidence for God, bring it. Otherwise,
I think we don't have any more calls available. We've got one last caller. So we're right here at the end of the night, but that guy definitely needs to bring his A game on tomorrow's show or Wednesday's show. I'd love to hear him talk to Matt Dillahunty.
That'd be fun.
All right. And I saw in the chat that I'm going to have to talk about the whale dick story. So I guess we'll do that in super chats, but
I'm not even close to sorry.
No. All right. Well, final call for tonight. Talking to Ellie from Florida. A lot of people from Florida. I'm so sorry about everybody that's from Florida.
Hello. How are you guys today? I'm so happy to be in the show with you guys.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Okay. So this is the thing. I'm going to bring it, and I'm sorry. I'm navigating atheism. I am not a theist, but there are things that I have doubts in my mind. And one of those things are astrology. And I think, like, by example, like, how come astrology is not real when, like, the moon already affects, like, sea and a lot of stuff here on planet Earth, like, from a scientific point of view. And also, astrology has been a thing for thousands and thousands of years. So I would like to, understand more what is your take on astrology.
Right. Well, I'm just wondering, can you, do you know the reason why the moon has an effect on the oceans and seas and water on the earth in general?
I think it's because of gravity. If I am not bad, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I don't know everything. Like I said, I just want to talk about it.
No, you're right. It's because of gravity. And so that's with the moon and its gravity as it orbits around us. It's tidally locked is what it's called to the earth. And so that's how the moon's gravity can affect the oceans. Now, I guess I just don't, where I'm coming from on the whole astrology bit, and I'll let Jim jump in here in a second. I don't see how, like, the planets, like, out, that are millions and millions of miles away, I don't see how those can affect anything here on Earth. I know some of the common astrological claims, but I don't see a physical, like a physics connection, like a real connection between the alignments of the planets or our position in orbit around our sun. I don't see how any of that affects anything in our daily lives, like here on Earth. That's the reason why I don't get astrology. But I'll let Jim jump in here now.
For me, there's just no known way for the moon or planets or stars to affect the electrochemicals in our brain, which is what would have to happen. Also, modern studies of astrology show that you can take any astrological prediction, move it around, and people will believe it just as easily, because it doesn't have anything to do with a specific, with anything specific. They're just so general that they're useless. So in order to prove that astrology is true, you need to, one, stop using Barnum statements that apply to everybody, which is what most astrology is. Two, show how the astrological signs affect human behavior. You need to show it either affects electrochemical, or some other way. You need to show how that actually. And to date, nobody's done that. Every time they try and show it, it turns out to be false for a wide variety of reasons. And so that's the problem. And just because something has been believed for thousands of years or hundreds of years or 10 years doesn't mean it's true. The length of time has been believed has nothing to do with
Christianity when it's obviously not true. That this guy is not real.
Mm-hmm. Right. So
Christianity,
until show evidence,
that this guy is not real.
And now, if you were to say something along the lines
thing is, like, I have this doubt. Sorry, it's just we have some delay, and that's why I talk. And then when I talk, you are talking. I'm sorry, but like I said, it's just a confusion that I have because sometimes it's so accurate. Like, I have a lot of friends that they are astrologers, right? And I didn't believe, I was skeptical about it, and I booked a tarot reading, and it got like really, 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 really like specific. And and they don't get to know so much about my life. So when I heard this, I say, hey, I never heard anybody on the line or in the atheist experience talking about astrology. So I wanted to bring it out. So to hear something different from Christianity, because I swear to God, I'm tired of hearing people talking about the Bible. I can't anymore. I spent all my childhood in that. I can't do it anymore.
Well, so as far as like telling what you call really specific details about you or whatnot, there is a method called cold reading, which is where people can pick up on certain aspects of you, your personality, and they can make guesses about it. And they usually start out broad and then whittle it down to even more specific things until the point where you're like, oh my God, how did you know that? And so that's generally how it works out. And there's a lot of different documentaries out there about it, about cold reading and about how people can manipulate you into thinking certain things about, you know, their abilities as some kind of I guess clairvoyant or having some kind of extrasensory perception about you. So I mean, I would look into cold reading and see if that can be explained like that. But I don't know what the specific claims that you found spectacular were, but my guess would be that they just cold read you.
Yeah, and they probably had a lot.
Well, that might be it.
Not necessarily.
Well, the thing is, like, I come from a country called Venezuela. So in my country, there's a lot of witchcraft, and there's that culture, right? I never believed in any of it because I was actually raised up Adventist. I know it sucked. And then, like, I got to this world with spirituality, but not to me. It's because my friends are, and I hang out with them, and I can just not to listen to them sometimes, and I get into that. So yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up today. When I got like this tarot reading that I am talking about, this dude didn't know nothing about me. Like, I didn't know him like at all, but he still like touched like very specific stuff about what stuff was going to happen that week and how to navigate through it. And it kind of happened. So, like, not the whole thing was accurate, but certain parts of it were, and that made me doubt. So that's why I wanted to talk to you guys, because you guys know more about atheism, and here I am here in my journey to trying to know, like, to become an atheist, because I don't think like all the religious trauma that I went through, and I don't think religions are good for us, period. So yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Keep in mind what you're. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just going to say, what it sounds like to me when you describe this, it sounds like what's called a bullseye fallacy. And basically, imagine that you've got like just a handful of darts, and you just throw that handful of darts at a bullseye, at a dartboard. And you only count the ones that seem to land on high scoring places or even just on the bullseye. And it's like, oh, look, I knew that I would, do it. Like, I knew I would throw a perfect thing. But the thing is that they've thrown so many different things at the wall, something's going to stick. Like, they're going to get something right about it. But like, if astrology were a real thing that was predictable, that, would allow us to, make statements about what's going to happen in the future, which is what predictable is. Like in science, you don't have like, oh, well, some of these things are right on that matches with our hypothesis. Therefore, our hypothesis is true. Like, that's like, if the hypothesis doesn't account for everything that happens in the experiment, or you don't get the expected outcome like in totality, then that hypothesis isn't good. You got to rework your hypothesis. But that seems to be not how astrology works. It seems like, oh, let's just throw whatever we can at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. And you did some interesting psychology there.
Why. Like it states it. Like there's a proven way so we can know that this is true. And what you're saying makes so much sense to me, because one thing is to say, tomorrow is gonna rain, and you don't know whether it's gonna rain or not. But then, like scientifically, you can see. I don't know a lot about weather. I'm sorry, but you can see in the radar and everything that a storm is coming. They have proof of it. They have the forecast. Thank you. English is not my first language, so they have the forecast to know. So there are those two ways that both of them are true. So one is proven and the other one is not. So we could say like this happens with astrology as well.
Yeah. And you did some interesting psychology there too. You said that it sort of kind of was right? So you're post hoc rationalizing what he said to what actually happened, it sounds like. Because it sounds like he didn't get everything right. He got some of the details right. And you can get some of the details of somebody's life right without knowing a whole lot about them, because we tend to be creatures of habit. Now, if he'd said something like, tomorrow you'll have a near miss from a toilet seat falling from orbit, and that happened, that's a whole different story, right? That's a very, very specific, weird, unusual event. But if he said, tomorrow you'll have a near miss by a car, that's a lot more common, right? And so you have to be very careful with these con men that they're not, that you count the misses as often as you count the hits, and that you notice the discrepancies at least as often as you notice the congruencies between what they've said and what happens when they're making these forecasts. Because you can be very, very general. You can also say somebody doesn't know you, but they can say very general statements and watch your micro expressions, things that you don't have a lot of control over, that you can actually learn to read. It's a skill you can learn to read somebody in conversation, to better guide your conversation with them. And so there's a whole art form to it, to these micro expressions and body language. So you can learn that. It's a skill, and that's basically what they do. So they can, in a good one, can in a very few sentences, very few questions, learn a lot about you just by the questions they ask.
Years of experience.
Yeah. So I'd be more surprised if he couldn't figure out and assume a lot of things about you, because again, we're creatures of habit. You have, if you notice where you come from and what your background is at all, he can make assumptions about a lot of things about you, because we tend to believe things and do things with the crowd around us because we're social creatures. We tend to not stray too far from social norms, and those of us that do will give those cues away in our behavior. So a good study of human behavior and micro expressions and body language can get you a long way to appear to have mystical powers.
Wow, this makes so much sense. Thank you so much, Jim. I am a huge fan of this program, like I said, and I always wanted to call and just because to talk about this, because I always see, like I say, I always see people talking about the Bible and Christianism, that there's like these other religions and other topics that I feel like people that are coming into atheism also need, like, because a person like me, I was raised in an Adventist household. And it was for me so easy to believe something. You know, when I was a kid, I was so scared to go to bed every night because I didn't know if God would allow me to have another day, which is crazy because that's that's something that a kid shouldn't be thinking of. But now, as I am learning more about science, because I am studying computer science, I'm getting to know more stuff about not only science, about atheism, and a lot of stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. So thank you, Jim, and thank you all, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much there, Ellie. I appreciate you calling in. I hope you'll call back in the future too.
Yep.
I will.
I should mention that I'm actually in.
Well, we'll see you later, Ellie.
Really? See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I should mention that I'm actually in Alabama. I'm in Dothan right now. So I guess I'm technically
you're
a
in Dothan?
Floribamian. Is that what you call it? Yeah.
Yeah, Floribama. That's pretty close to Floribama down there. There's actually, I believe there's actually a city named like Floribama.
I don't know.
I have been begging for a astrology call for months. And you get the call. How come you all never want to talk about this? Fucking so mad. Ellie, have your friends who believe in it also
Jimmy.
call in. What?
They're your callers, Jimmy. You're doing the advertising for them.
I wanted on it. But I wasn't going to be rude.
Yeah.
You notice how you to show up on the call.
You notice how astrologers never create a system that works in reverse? So like people who believe in astrology, they'll always go, they'll be like, I could say something like, yeah, I'm actually a Sagittarius. And they'll go, I knew it. And then, which implies that it could work in reverse. And yet you can't take a personality test that outperforms 1 out of 12 in getting correct what a person's signs are. It's fun.
Yeah.
Weird that.
Well,
conspicuous.
Also, Ellie didn't seem to necessarily, believe in it. She just found some, weird things that were seemed spot on to her. But as we drove into it a little bit, it was like, well, it wasn't all correct. There was a little bit that was correct.
62 people in chat are cowards, by the way. Not really. But 622 of you voted. 10% of you said you believed in Bigfoot, and not one of you called in. And then we had 2 different theists try to call in, and both of them bailed early on. One was going to defend the existence of Loki and Cthulhu, and then another one was didn't know for sure what they wanted to debate on, so they were politely told, well, figure that out and then call back. We're not going to figure it out for you. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups. And then somebody who believes in a historical Moses also hung up. I'm going to see to these hiccups.
Okay. I do want to thank all of the mods in the chat tonight. Thank you guys for keeping everybody, on track and having good discussions there. I also want to thank the screener of Margan. Thank you so much. And then, Jim, thank you for being on the show tonight. Me. Yeah. We're both broadcasting from Alabama. Just I'm at the top end. You're at the ass end of it,
Yeah. Well, the food's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. So Brian Pooh KC.
Did you forget anybody to thank?
Oh, thank you, Jimmy, for hosting the show and for producing.
Just kidding. I don't give a fuck. Shut the fuck up.
Jimmy who?
Read these stupid things. Send your super chats with your favorite penis animal penis facts, or just animal facts in general, or how the weather is where you are, because we're all going to die and nobody seems to give a fuck about climate change. It's happening now, assholes. You're doing nothing. Anyway, it's been over 100 degrees for the last 31 days straight in Austin.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and no rain.
I mean, well, we've had damn near monsoons like multiple times. I think that we've had hail 2 or 3 times here in Alabama.
Aren't you are you in the zone for, is it today or tomorrow, where we're supposed to have hurricane level storms without a hurricane? Because everyone remembers those, right? Those have always been around our whole lives. So common and often, and what? No, they're pretty much new. Fuck off. God damn it. Why are we just so happy to just die? Oh my God. Well, I don't want to ride a bicycle.
Jimmy,
fucking Jesus.
You need to have some stronger feelings about that, I think.
We're so stupid. Humans are so fucking stupid. We fucking suck so goddamn bad. We are setting records for the hot. I swear, years ago they were talking about if we hit that average temp of 2 degrees Celsius additional, we are fucked. And I swear it's going to be like this year where they're going to be like, yeah, so we meant if we hit that 50 years from now, y'all did it in a week. Fucking Christ, we're so goddamn fucking stupid. What? Where everything's terrible? Let's do more emissions. Oh, but it's China's fault. You know, that place that we're paying to manufacture all of our stuff cheaply. And so it's literally still us. Fucking Jesus Christ. I don't fucking understand this goddamn planet. Why do you want to be dead? Or hot? Being hot is also terrible. Even if we weren't going to die, I don't want to be hot. Who the fuck wants to be hot? Assholes?
I don't.
Yeah, it sucks. Well, it's the three of us are all big boys too, which I don't think any of us like the heat so much. But fuck off, y'all. Okay? Fuck.
All right, Brian Pooh from KC.
I think it's
Thanks
Bryn
for doing
Pooh.
a show. Bryn Pooh, thanks for doing a show on my 72nd birthday. Now, I on my channel, I sing happy birthday to those that have a happy birthday. And so I'm going to sing that right now.
Bryn Pooh's having a terrible birthday. The earth is on fire.
To you.
She hates his birthday.
Birthday to you. Happy
The earth is on fire.
Happy birthday to you. There you go.
She's not having a happy birthday.
Thank God for mute buttons.
In these temperatures, bad birthday.
If anybody else has a birthday, send in a super chat and I'll sing happy birthday specifically to you. Casey's begging not to do it, so people just make it up. Say it's your birthday, and it's not really your birthday. Like, it doesn't have to be. I just need a super chat to do it.
There's something really, really wrong with sending a super chat to get tortured.
I'd like to introduce you to a concept called OnlyFans. People pay top dollar for that shit. All up in my
that's a whole
DMs.
different thing.
OnlyFans.com/cowboybutts drive me nuts. That's where you'll find me. It's not real. That's just my email password.
This is my email
You should
password.
probably do that channel. You'd probably make some money there, Jimmy.
I had an OnlyFans called OnlyFans.com/wholesome-dad. Technically, it still exists, but I stopped because it wasn't technically sex work, and some people found that to be not cool. But anyway, it was where I pretended to be a person's judgmental father, and I would apologize for being so judgmental about, like, do you remember when that time I said you were wearing, no daughter of mine was going to go out looking like a slut? I'm very sorry. You see, I have insecurities because I've never been able to find freedom in my sexuality. And so I project that onto it. Basically that. But it'd be like I'd be drilling something at the same time. And I mean just regular drilling, not OnlyFans drilling. Because that'd be a weird time to talk.
Bizarre enough to work.
That'd be a weird time to talk to your child. If you're doing the other drilling.
Well, either drilling, yeah. Drilling in either sense of the word would be a weird time to have that conversation with your child.
Yeah, you know, but when should you have that? When is it a weird time? I'm just trying to have my cereal, Dad.
Well, there's weird. There's weird.
Jim, do you want to read this next super chat?
Yeah.
How come my podcast never did better? I'm fucking hilarious. All right, I'll mute now.
$5 from the Raven 200. It's 76 degrees Fahrenheit where I'm at. Traffic is heavy and my sleep schedule is fucked. Jimmy, go take a Dominator from Bobby Lashley. Not really sure what I want to know what that is. However,
I think a Dominator is a wrestling.
Where are you?
Go check out the OnlyFans.
Where are you? Where is Raven 200? Northern Alaska?
Yeah, that's got to be.
Wow.
That's got to be some Canadian bullshit.
Oh, no, I think it's up above Canadian. I mean, it's probably up there as North Pole type shit.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's 5 regular real dollars though, not Canadian fake money.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's not fake money. So
maybe the Ravens from Alaska. Let's just live in that particular area.
I want to say I know this because I think it's come up before. I'm gonna guess Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah.
KC said, "Fuck Ohio."
Oh yeah, Ohio sucks.
Yeah. All right. So $5 from Nee, who says, "Is it still confirmation bias that scholars are bringing to light more and more evidence backing up my mythicist suspicions from my childhood?" Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. It is quite interesting as far as that goes. As time goes on, it seems like the consensus seems to be shifting more in the mythicist direction as far as like what mythicists have been arguing for a long time about topics tangential but still important to the mythicist position. The majority of scholars have started coming around to a number of these things. Even Bart Ehrman, he's flipped on a couple of different positions that he at one time pretty much railed against mythicists for making, and then later on was like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally wrong about this." And so he's even Bart Ehrman has flipped on a couple of positions. So
yeah, I wouldn't say it's confirmation bias, but it's skating awfully close if you're not looking again at the arguments, and also the counter arguments, right? The both sides. You could be skating dangerously close to confirmation bias.
It would depend on the person. It could be very well. And if Nee is only reading the things that affirm his past belief and then not at all exposing himself to the rebuttals, that's the problem with fucking the annoyance that I have with so many Mormons who are like, "Oh, well, I now know what's wrong with the CES letter because luckily some people wrote some rebuttals for me." And then they repeat the rebuttals they've heard, and you're like, first of all, that's dog shit. You're not even good at repeating them. I'd rather have the people who wrote them because you actually suck at this. But why haven't you looked at all at the responses to the rebuttals? Because the responses to the rebuttals are like basically just pointing out fundamentally you did not do the assignment. We're over here talking about anachronistic horses and you're somehow talking about brass coins. The fuck is going on? Anyway, so it's where people stop at the I've just read the thing I like, and that's where I will complete my research.
Yep. That's why I said
I definitely
confirmation bias.
So it could be me. You might be doing it. We got to figure it out.
Yeah, I definitely suggest people read both sides of the argument and then decide what you're more convinced by, because I mean that's the way that you really refine like what you believe and why you believe it, and to make sure that you believe in things that make sense to you.
Yeah, I just think a lot of people will sometimes mistake both sides as a or a two-step thing. Like, okay, I read this side and then I read the opposing side, but then I didn't come back and read the other side's response to the opposing side's response, and I didn't read the response to the response to the response, and so it can get. Like this is also the problem with like anti-vaxxers. They're literally just like, oh, well, I read a scientific article, and then some idiot with who lives at home with 900 cats wrote an article about why that thing is stupid, and because I'm also stupid like the person. And I found the stupid person's rebuttal more accessible. I just stopped there and went with the stupid person. Just a bunch of stupid people jerking each other off, which sounds like a happier life. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the wrong. I don't know. Did we read the last one? Yeah, we did. Getting jerked off? Whose kink isn't that?
All right. I think I should read this one. So this is from Jim Barrows. who's on the show. He says, "Tell the whale penis story."
I don't know, but his avatar looks disappointed in you for the whale penis story. Look at that thing. It's looking mad. You should have left that whale alone. That is not what the blowhole is for.
Okay, so the whale penis story. If people don't know, on my channel, it's become sort of a meme thing. 15-foot whale penis, and that's derives from a debate that I had with Kent Hovind. We were in a debate about evolution. Or not evolution, actually. It wasn't evolution. It was about the global flood, about whether or not it happened. And Kent loves to talk about evolution and shit talk evolution. And so we got off on a tangential thing about evolution. And for whatever reason, Kent starts bringing up whales. And we were talking about vestigial limbs. And he's like, you think a whale's pelvis bone is a vestigial limb? He's got a 15-foot penis that he's got to maneuver in the dark down there. And he just...
He's got a 15-foot penis. He's got to maneuver in the dark. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got to see if I can get him to say it again. And so I'm like, wait, Kent, can you repeat that? A 15-foot what? And he was like, a 15-foot. Oh, you're a pervert. Are you a pervert or something?
Oh, you're one of the perverts, I guess.
Yeah.
What? It's like I can't even say penis without you thinking of penises. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Oh, man.
I bet if I sent you a picture of my penis, you'd think about it, you fucking pervert. Fucking weirdo. I'm going to prove it. I just sent you 30 pictures of my penis and my butthole. Don't think about it, you some kind of pervert.
So Kent Hovind claims that whale penises are 15 foot long, which they're not. I think they're like around 10, is what I found out later. But it really didn't matter because Kent, like for whatever reason, Kent Hovind was really focused on whale dick at that point, and it's just like, God, I didn't even go. Like normally, I'm the one that brings up penis first, but it's like this time Kent was like, "Oh, whale penis."
Well, I was just trying to get ahead of you. Sorry, I said that wrong.
Yeah,
I was just trying to get ahead from you.
Fascinated by a 10-foot penis. I mean, honestly, who isn't fascinated by a 10-foot?
You don't have to send me the gifts of that tape here. That's already my screensaver. Okay.
I can just imagine Kent Hovind fantasizing about a whale in the ocean using its pelvic bone in order to maneuver a 15-foot dick around. Why are you thinking about that, Kent?
That's why I don't swim in the ocean, okay? I don't want to get hit in the face by those things. You're having a good time. Suddenly you feel something on your face.
It's a whale dick.
Because that whale's some kind of pervert, okay?
Yeah, it definitely is.
I think we want to get into perverted mammals. I think dolphins take gold medals for that.
So I'm going to be started on sperm whales. Okay. Gay name, by the way.
Jim, can you read this one?
€5 from Thomas Donald Jacobs. Giant African land snails are hermaphroditic and use love darts for insemination. Also, they like having their genital pores massaged by the unaware. Yeah, but they're too small for whale penis, so, you know.
You know what's weird? Two people sent this fact.
Tapir penis.
Two different people sent this fact. I'm not kidding. Look at this. Different person.
Emery, for Jimmy, land snails have both working genitalia. They shoot a, quote, love dart to determine which will carry the eggs. Also, their sperm is super long. I have 8 snails. One died from too much sex. From too much snoo.
You better be watching the new season of Futurama if you're making that reference right now. Because if we don't watch it, if we don't watch the new season, we're not going to get another. They're not going to uncancel it at a 5th time.
I don't know. They might. But
Billy West is getting old, man. That dude's like in his 70s.
Speaking of love darts, I know that there's a certain kind of octopus that'll actually rip off its own dick and throw it at the female of the species.
When it's fed
like,
up.
Go fuck yourself with this.
Like, fine, I don't want it anyway. It's not getting any use on me.
You've got the anglerfish in which the male merges with the female body. So, I mean, that's just, Anyway.
Yeah, we really have the most boring sex of the animal kingdom. No wonder we're all a bunch of perverts, okay?
Yeah, but how fucking crazy would it be? It's like, oh, well, Jim over there merged with his wife, Nancy, in order to produce offspring.
Now you can no longer function.
It's exactly what marriage feels like.
All right, $5 from Nee Whale D story. Are you some kind of pervert? I have it on good authority. They're 15 foot long. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy, and the war tapirs and chariot you rode in on.
That's a reference to one of the people who was trying to debunk the anachronistic horses in the Book of Mormon, had suggested that perhaps the horses and chariots and the horses that were being ridden by the Nephites and the Lamanites were not actual horses, but in fact tapirs. Which you're not gonna be running fast on a tapir, not as it's got to drag that anchor behind it.
Well, I mean, it could be using it to kind of pole vault forward.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean,
yeah, they can actually climb vertically. They've got a built-in tether.
By the dick.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Evolution couldn't have done that. Okay. Whacked.
$5 from Nee. What do you think of Kenneth Humphrey's idea that Paul didn't even exist, just another biblical literary character? Get trampled by war tapirs, Jimmy.
Well, for me personally, yeah. Well, I mean, what we know is that there are like 7 epistles that are written by somebody claiming to be the Apostle Paul, and I don't see any reason why, why doubt like the name of the person that wrote it. That it's very obviously that the same person wrote all of them, all 7. There's more than that, but there are ones that are forged in the Apostle Paul's name. So I don't see any reason to really focus on that particular point. He may or may not have existed, but the fact is that we have these 7 letters written by the same person that knew other apostles. So that's where I sit on it.
The stupidest part of that story is I want everyone to realize how different I am. So I am no longer Saul. I'm someone completely different. I'm Paul.
Paul.
I changed one letter. You guys don't even know who was talking to you. Good luck updating your phone books.
I could just see them like, wasn't there some asshole named Saul that was going around? Maybe it was Paul, and Paul's over there like, no, it wasn't Paul. It wasn't
I swear,
Nope.
Paul owes me $50. No. That was Saul. I'm Paul.
A totally different person.
If you have a bad reputation, it's just good marketing to change your name. Right?
And he did such a good job. The cops will never figure out. We've been looking for Saul for months. Let's ask Paul. He looks like Saul.
Look, it worked for Superman putting on glasses. It'll work for just a simple letter change.
Hey, Superman also swooshed his hair. That curl didn't just always exist. Forget about the Dean Cain version. That guy sucks independently. That guy sucks.
$5 from Games and Science, who says, if you don't believe in Bigfoot, then you've clearly never seen Jimmy without his shirt on. But fuck Jimmy, go fuck yourself.
BFGFY. What does the BF stand for? But for real? Oh, no? Well, I mean, I hope. But Games and Science, are you one of the 6 people who have? Because not that many people have seen me without my shirt on. So Who are you? I'm a hairy man, though. That's true. I've often said I'd rather have my dick pics leaked to the world than just like a picture of me in a tight T-shirt. That is not where my confidence lies. I realized a couple of weeks ago that I have never in my conscious life, I can't speak to being a child, like a young child, but I have never in my conscious life ever been fully naked outdoors. Not once. Yeah.
And the universe, thanks
Jimmy, like,
dick.
Are you like Robin Williams hairy or like less than that?
I would say on my chest, I'm not quite there. But on especially the underside of my legs, I'm maybe Robin Williams hairy. Like the underside of my thighs.
So, you know what's weird? What's weird about my legs is that like I've got this half thing going on. Like the outside of my legs are pretty hairy, but like the insides of my legs are not hairy at all. So I've got like a half thing going on there.
I got pretty hairy feet, but the hairs themselves are not that thick or that dark. So there's more hair than appears. A little bit. Except for that I'm 6'2". So that kind of ruins the hobbit thing.
You're a giant hobbit.
That's right. My mother was a hobbit. Well, let's do that the other way around. That would be devastating for her. My mother was a giant, but my father was a hobbit. Yeah. You only want that to happen. Unlike my dog, who I'm not kidding. My dog's mother was a Chihuahua, and his father was a husky. Hard to imagine what?
How does...
So let's not imagine that coupling.
No, the husky, yeah, but that's real. My dog, I DNA tested it. The mother's a Chihuahua, and the father's a husky. And to answer your question, John...
does this...
Go ahead.
Does that mean that somebody had to hold the Chihuahua behind the husky in order for it to like fuck?
I assume they were strays. He definitely has the personality of a stray as well. So I assume it was a stray or a wild thing. Also, a lot of people, when you say that, are clearly imagining toy Chihuahuas, like the Taco Bell dog or some shit. Regular Chihuahuas get up to like 20 to 30 pounds, or probably not 30, but like 20 to 25. Now, that said, a husky can't mate until 6 months, and by then he's already like 50 to 60 pounds. So it's still not great, but that's the best I can do is like a young husky and a big Chihuahua, and then it's not as devastating.
I would give a whole new meaning to I'm going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've slept with people half my weight. They were fine.
All right.
So what do y'all do? Oh, you want me to send you another one or something? Fuck. Hey, everybody, would you fucking send more super chats? The show's going to be over so soon, and I'm just saying.
$5 from Games and Science. I don't want to sound braggadocious or anything, but it's only not even real temperature here, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Go melt in the sun, Jimmy.
See, that sounds beautiful. That's a wood shop day. You leave the garage door open and just start chiseling things.
Well, hey, now that the sun has gone down, it's 73 degrees here.
You bitch. Let me tell you, the sun has gone down here, and it is a balmy 98 degrees.
Yeah. It's probably still over 100 in Phoenix,
Yeah, but that's okay. I know it's annoying when people say this. Dry heat is not near as bad. I would be still doing stuff. I would have mowed the lawn today if I was in Phoenix.
No, you wouldn't have.
Oh, yes, I fucking would have. I fucking would have. No. I've been in both. I'm not just making this up. I would rather be, so today it was 105 degrees here. I would rather be in 100 and let's say the equivalent, I'd say about 118 is still better in a dry Phoenix climate than 105 is with fucking ocean humidity.
I've spent most of my adult life in Phoenix and 118 is just beyond.
I don't think it was actually 118 today. What was it though? I'm just saying, I wish it was a 118 and dry over 105. And well, no, I'm saying that they're about the same miserable.
Oh, And it was 107 and 48% humidity. Yeah, the humidity in Phoenix is starting to climb because of all the fucking trees and all the fucking grass.
Where are they getting it from? Fucking
yeah. It's the trees and the grass and the fact that sprinklers are going and all that raises the humidity. So
I don't see where you saw 40 humidity. I see 20 in Phoenix.
First Dragon in chat just said it that and he's in Phoenix. In chat, he said it.
I trust technology. Fuck chatters. But send us money, please. Somebody fire me. What the fuck? Oh, wait. You want another one? Jesus Christ. You guys are needy as fuck. Wait, did we read that last one?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Dylan Fuller says the descriptions of some sea monsters may have actually been whale penises, as they enjoy flashing them above the water. Lol. It's also 92 in Florida, also so humid. Yeah, not 92 in Florida, where you're irradiated every time you go on the road.
Why do they flash their penises above the water?
I don't know, but it's my weight. It's my weight image. Hold on. I think I can send it. I can send it to you, Jimmy.
I was gonna say maybe don't show a penis on air. Y'all, we only have a couple left, and fucking Jesus Christ, life is expensive. Just keeping the production rooms bearable to be in, dude. My electricity bill this last month, and then what will be this month too, have been ridiculous. Well above $500, like between $600 and $800.
Yikes!
Yeah. Why are you black and white now?
A lot of power.
Oh crap! I turned on my OBS to see.
Oh,
hold on.
I thought maybe we were doing a flashback.
I'm turning it off.
Okay. Is this the beginning of a pretentious movie? Why are they doing things in black? Why did Snyder do the Snyder cut of Justice League in black and white? And then recently, I don't know if you all listen to the podcast Smartless, but they did a documentary on it where they followed them around and they put that in black and white. And I'm just sitting there going, why? Defend that this is a good choice. Oh, I wouldn't have gotten the same thing if I would have been able to tell his jeans were blue. Fuck off. I don't have black and white eyes. I don't know. It seems stupid to me. Seems made up. Yeah. You want to read this while he sends me dick pics?
$5 for B. 111 in Phoenix. Can't be that hot, can it? Oh my God. It's like standing on the sun. This city should not exist. It's a monument to man's hubris. Bobby Hill. 111 is getting a little warm. I have to admit. It doesn't start getting hot till 115, 116, somewhere in there.
Y'all glad we're not doing shit about climate change?
Hey, I would love for some.
The whole Republican Party's platform is make profit off of human misery.
Yeah. It's because they're all fucking old. They're like, we don't have to stick around for this much longer. And we're always cold, always asking for sweaters. So a little extra heat on our way out of the door, we're fine.
Yeah. So Jimmy, I sent it to you on WhatsApp.
I saw. It's that's a whale penis.
I would love for somebody to call in and like challenge the whole climate change thing, because I've done videos about climate change and like it just seems like people don't care. Like it's like, oh, these people are pushing this whole oil agenda through PragerU. Okay, I don't care.
We had a climate change educator, communicator called Hazel Thayer. Hazel is online on. And I was really hoping some people would call into. I think it's one of those things where it's they know they're wrong, they're just not going to change. And so they'll keep saying stupid stuff around each other, much like religious people often say, like, and then I said, I'm more sure that God exists than I'm sure you exist. But they stop saying that in front of us because they're like tired of being treated like that's a really stupid thing to say. So I don't know. I think they realize that there's no way to not come off super stupid saying it's not true anymore. I don't know. I just hate everything. How fucking sad is it that I'm sitting here going like, God, I hope somebody like Mike Pence goes up in the polls. That's the reality. Not him, though. Yeah. Oh. Who do you think of the Republican lineup would be the least terrible option of the current people who have announced?
Oh, fuck.
Oh, the people who've announced. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, all of them are trying to cultivate that Trump base. And
and I don't makes get it, them like, that base is a minority. That base is a minority even among the conservatives. I don't understand it, why they think. I mean, they're a vocal minority, but it just seems stupid.
I'm pretty sure the least terrible would be Chris Christie or Tim Scott. Maybe Nikki Haley. But again, I'm not saying any of them are good. I'm saying that is the group of least terrible. And Nikki Haley, I'm kind of a no on because she's still too close to Trumpism, even though she's now trying to divert from it. Yeah. But Chris Christie, I don't know, it'd just be kind of cool to have the country ran by a mob boss. But not like the asshole kind like last time, because Trump ran like he thinks the mafia runs in a movie, whereas I'm pretty sure Chris Christie just is the head of a couple of families, if you know what I'm saying. That'd be dope. Oh my God, they're really gonna make us vote for Joe Biden. Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
So Wanda Larson says, not to brag, but my high temp today was 76 in Wisconsin. We did, however, have a massive storm, no tornado, that took out several trees and houses. You're right about climate change, Jimmy. Terrifies me too.
It's fucking
I gotta
awful.
tell you, those high winds terrify the shit out of me. We had like a dust tornado form like behind our house the other day. That shit was scary.
Last November, I had just a tornado form behind my house. It was, yeah. I don't remember what we were talking about, but I heard tornadoes in houses. It's actually the only thing my town is famous for is a tornado that killed a bunch of people back in the 90s. I don't seem so interested all at once. Jesus Christ. You're both so gracious with pretending that I said something interesting. Thanks. The Raven 200.
Jimmy, I live in Tornado Alley.
I know.
I'm in Northern Idaho, Jim. Also, Jimmy, go get fucked by a tapperus, a Book of Mormon war tapperus to be exact. I got D&D this Saturday. Yeet, yeet.
I believe Raven either is using the correct spelling of taper. Nope, it's not. Because Raven did it twice, so I wasn't sure. But they mean tapers. Yeah.
Well, trying not to interpret what's being
$5. $5 when I got cookies. 75 degrees today, here today, and my electric bill was $27 last month. Well, Ricky, I think ours is usually around 100.
Jeez. You got solar up? John, do you have solar up?
We're not. I'm actually not allowed to have solar panels on my house due to HOA shit.
Oh, I thought maybe it was just Alabama. Are you allowed to do the ones that they can't actually tell they're solar panels? The ones that are ceiling roof tiles?
I don't think so. No. Our HOA is pretty much like fuck the climate is what they're like. Nope, can't do it.
HOAs are just practice fascism. As HOAs have gotten more popular, the world has objectively gotten worse. Someone gonna read it? Yeah, you know what's really great for the audience, keep audience? If just no one talks at all. We're just going to have a moment of silence for nothing.
Yeah. Emery, sorry, I brain farted. Emery King. When scientists first saw an Argonaut pee-pee, they thought it was a parasitic worm because it can detach and swim on its own. What the fuck?
All right, so let's start with this. What?
Video needed.
What?
No. Video not needed. Video not needed. Never mind. I didn't say that.
What exactly is an Argonaut? I'm gonna Google.
I believe
Clearly,
it's a snail-like thing.
No, it looks like it's an octopus-like thing.
Oh.
Yeah. But like a mollusky type of squid thing. I don't know.
And apparently its penis can detach and has a mind of its own. Awesome.
A mind of its own? What?
Well,
no, I mean, it thought it was a parasitic worm because it can detach and swim on its own.
Swim on its own, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
at that point,
if you cut off my arm, it actually will reflexively give the bird. So it's just from doing it a lot. That force of habit.
Yeah.
Well, the show's over, so y'all enjoying these final days and memories we're making together?
Yeah. Did you know that there's a guy running on the Republican ticket called Francis Suarez? He's a Miami mayor. He's the Miami mayor, I guess. There's also a guy named Asa Hutchins.
Asa Hutchins, yeah. Asa's pretty terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like it in the description that it gave. So yeah, pretty shitty. Oh, thank you everybody for showing up tonight. Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah. We will see everybody later. Become a patron on patreon.com/call the line. Bye, heathens.
We're all super fucked.
Like, I'm over here looking at